Hi everyone, and thank you for purchasing the Image Gallery Shopify section by qwiqode. In this video, I'll be showing you how to actually use it. So if you haven't installed it yet, please refer to the separate video in the package, and you also have access to a PDF with instructions. So to get started, head over to your theme editor, navigate to the page you want to add the section to. Over on the left, click on Add Section, and search for the section you installed, QQ Image Gallery. And here comes the default load. So over on the left, we have different multiple blocks, which each one represents a slide or an image, basically. You can always add more, and you can drag and drop as you can with all other sections in the theme editor. Over on the right, we have a bunch of settings. So we can start by adding some images. So click on the first block. You can select image, and then we can go over here and search for an image. Let's add in some more here. Oops, let's take that one. As you notice, we also, aside from selecting the image, we have a place here to add image title and a subtitle. If you want, of course, you could leave those blank if you don't want them, but however you choose. Let's just put in a number here so that we can distinguish between Okay, so we added our content in. Now let's click on the main section and then go through the extensive list of settings. So first thing, we have section title. So that's this one right over here. We can put in whatever title you want. Then you have an option to set HTML element. This is good there are two benefits to be able to set these. The HTML element is basically between H1 and H6, and this is good for one is for search engines, as they rank different parts of text on pages based on importance, and they look first at the headings. And if you mark H1, that means that it's a very important piece of text, string of text. Usually that's H1 is recommended to use only once per page, and it's usually used for a page title. And that's how Google would recognize the importance of that page. And others, you could set it basically by importance. Usually we use H2s for section heading, because they are still very important on the page. And the other benefit of using these is that it should already inherit styling that your theme already comes with, because your theme already set up font size or color or font weight for these various ones. If I choose H3, you could see it becomes smaller because that's what my theme already set up. But of course, you can further down, we can always update that and change that, those typography settings. Next, we have text block. This is a text block. So basically, that's a text that goes right here, right underneath. Optional, of course. And here too, you can set it for one of those H1s or a P. Next, we have settings for the carousel itself. So right now we have a carousel and it's clicking through all of the images. We can select to choose how many to show. So right now there's 4. I'll get to the overflow here in a second, but we can also do 5 or 6. 6 is the maximum usually that we would recommend. In this case, we only have 6. So what happens when you only have 6 images and 6 slides? Then there's no carousel. It's canceled out. Let's put it back to 4. But of course, you can go down also to 2, which will make the images much bigger as well. Let's just go back let's just keep it at 3 then. Next, we have an option here to advance the clicks as a group of 3 instead of instead of having it go one by one like this. That's an option. Next we have autoplay. So we could set autoplay, and then down here we have the speed. So it's every 4 seconds, or you could do it every 2 seconds, however you'd like. Turn that off. So here's the overflow of items. So we like to use this because it kind of hints that there's more, that there are more images. So you can have that turned on, or you can turn it off, and then you just have a regular carousel just like that. We'll keep that on for later. And infinite scroll. So we can either have it start at the very on the left, right? So you can't go left, or you could just go right all the way to the edge, and that's it. So you could turn that back on, and it just goes, it loops, and then you can already go back to the first one. We can set the space between the slides. So right now it's set to 20, but of course you could make it much bigger, much smaller. And we have that same setting for the mobile version as well. Here we have the arrow line color and background. So you can select what kind of color you want in the background. So let's say we'd like this to be black. Sorry, this is the arrow. So let's make that white, and then the background a dark color, and then you have that kind of button there. Here we can set the distance from the edge. So you can make this much further in. So it's 90 pixels from the edge. Or if you'd like it to be outside, you would select outside of wrapper. And then you'd bring this in a little bit more. And then, as you can see, we can move it right over there, just like that. Another option we have for the arrows is you can just put in your own arrow. Instead of just using our default one and setting the colors, you can upload your own SVG or PNG for each arrow. Next, for the toggle. So the toggle is this, where we would click that and it would expand to show the grid, or minimize to go back to the carousel. We can set the default state. So if you want it to just be as a grid on first load, you can do that, or you can set it as carousel. Now you can also edit the text. So when it's to expand it as a grid, you can put in a different text here and minimize image. As you can see, you can change that text, or you can hide this link altogether just by doing that. And then you don't have an option to switch. The only thing you can do is set the default, whatever loads. So you have that flexibility as well. Let's put this show grid, show carousel, just so we have something there. Switch this to default state grid, since we have some grid settings that we could take care of here. Here we can select how many columns, between 2 and 4. Like so. And then we can also adjust the gap, the horizontal gap between the images, and the vertical gap. If you want them to be closer or farther apart, it's up to you. We have these 3 settings also for mobile. So if I just glance at mobile for a moment, so we have this grid right now where it's one image. So we have an option for 1 or 2 in each row. And then you can also set the gap between them. Oops. Moving on, section styling. So we have this option here for the section itself. Now let me go back here and put the default to carousel. Now we can see we have an option to set regular full width or real full width. So when it's at regular, you have this content max width where you can adjust the maximum width of the entire section. So you can make it much smaller, much bigger, just like that. Then you have an option for full width, but before I put in full width, let's add a background color just so it'll be easier to visualize. So as you can see, regular, we have this option where it's limiting the width, and the arrow is flowing outside because of what we set up last time to be outside of the wrapper. Maybe we should switch that back as well. Go back here and do inside. Okay. If we set to full width, then as you can see, the background color stretches to the edges of the browser, but the content itself is still limited within the max width that we're setting up here. Now, if we set to real full width, it's going to ignore this max width and actually extend the carousel to the very edges. Now, there's still a space here, and that's because we have section horizontal padding. And we can put that down to 0, and now it's really looking like it's overflowing. And one more thing, going back to the overflow option, if we turn that off, then as you can see, the image itself goes and touches the very edge. And so this overflow especially looks nice when we set real full width. So it looks like the images are coming in from the edge of the page, of the browser. Moving on, we have this option for showing the header position inside or outside of the wrapper. Now this actually only works on regular, as you can see. Next, we have top margin and bottom margin. So the margins are the space outside of the section, so top, above, and below. So you can always add more spacing up here and then more spacing below here. You can see it'll extend out to more. Padding is the space within. So padding top, it'll give us more space at the top, just like that. And then at the bottom down here, just like that, give it some more. There you go. And then horizontal, as I showed you before, on real full width, it's not really needed because we want it to go to the very edge. But if we, in any case, wanted it otherwise, we could just add this padding, just like that. We have the same options, margins and padding for the mobile version. Next, section header styling. So that's this area right over here. So we have this maximum width. We can set that to be a little bit less. Sometimes if you have a really long block of text, you don't want it to go all the way to the edge. You want to limit it, let's say to 50% of the width. So you have that option. And you can actually see that if you're doing a left alignment, for instance. So if this was at 100%, then it's going to the very edge. You don't want that to happen. So you can move that right over there. And then in a second, we have left alignment for this as well. You could set the color. You can choose a custom font if you'd like. And then once you set this custom font, you can go into here and change the font to whatever Shopify offers. Or if you have a manually installed font, you can just paste the HTML code here. It's a little bit more advanced users, but you have that option to do so. And then you have font weight that you can set as well. I'll keep that at default. Next we have, let's put this back into center. Next we have margin top and bottom. So now it's for the title. So you can give more space, even more if you want. And then margin bottom, you can move that down so there won't be as much space between the paragraph and the title. You can set the font size to be a different size than the default. Let's turn this off. And actually, I'd like this to be regular. Like that. Line height, not as important unless your section title is going to be very long and it's going to go down to 2 lines, then you can adjust the line height if needed. And then letter spacing, You can add more letter spacing between the letters themselves. And these same settings for mobile. Moving on, the same exact settings for the text block. So for that, so you can also choose left align, right align, and so on, or center. And then choose the color. You can choose the font, you could choose the font weight, and same thing here, top and bottom margins, font size, line height, and letter spacing. And those exact ones for the mobile version. Moving on. So we have image styling now. So right now, as you can see, the default is set to square, but we can change this to portrait, or we can change it to landscape, and they'll automatically be cropped to the same size. Or we can do original, and as you can see, some images are landscape, some are vertical, so you get this jagged look. If that's something that you want, then you have that option to choose that. Let's just keep this at portrait for now. We also have an option, especially on portrait, but for others as well, where you can add a custom height to the image. So it's still on cropped as portrait, but then you can adjust the height if you want it a little bit smaller, shorter, or something like that. But keep in mind, you might have some undesired results with the cropping. You can add an image border to the images, border radius, corner radius, like that. And for the pop-up, we have an option. Obviously, you can click on the images to open the pop-up, and you can add image opacity, kind of for feedback that the user is hovering over the image. Next, we have carousel toggle styling. So that's right over here. So we can choose the color. We can have it show an underline or not. We can adjust the hover color. We can use a custom font. And we can align the toggle left, right, or center. And then we have the same font size, toggle line height, letter spacing, margin top, margin bottom. So if you want this to be higher up, you can lower the margin top down to -50 in this case. So it'll be more aligned with this text, and then you can add more margin bottom to give a little bit more space, just like that. Next, image text styling, excuse me. So we have the image title. You can choose not to show the image title here. You can show it maybe only when somebody pops up, when somebody clicks to show the pop-up, which I'll get to in a minute. Or if you have them, you can also set the text alignment. And you can also set the text alignment on mobile as well. You can also set the HTML element for the image titles. Set their color, custom font, all these settings that we have reviewed already before. Top margin, so you can give it a little bit more space here. Font size, line height, letter spacing, the same that we discussed. Same options for mobile. Then we have the subtitle styling. So for this here, you can select P or one of the H's. And here too, we can select like that. So let's say we want a little bit bigger here. There we go. And like that, lower the font. Like that. And then these same settings for mobile, font size, line height, letter spacing. Now let's review the pop-up. So pop-up. When you click on an image, you get the pop-up, and then you have the navigation where you can scroll through all of the images that are available. But each time you're making, you want to go in and set different settings, then the theme editor reloads the page, and then you don't have the pop-up appear. And then you have to click the image, and it becomes a little bit annoying. As you can see, if I change this opacity here, then I have to go back in, and I have to click again to check. So we added this feature called Preview Pop-up. And what happens is that every reload, it automatically opens this up. And now it'll only work, even if you forget this, it won't work when you're viewing the site regularly and not within the theme editor. It's only enabled through the theme editor. So we have that on. We can set the background color of the basically the overlay of this background. So you can make it whatever color you'd like. You can have it red or whatever, and set the opacity however you'd like. Let's just keep this at black, just like that. Then you have the close button up here. You can set the color of that to something else if you'd like. Next, we have the navigation arrows. So we do have this option that you can scroll through the images, but if you don't want it, you could just hide those buttons, and then it's just clicking one by one, and clicking out, and clicking in, and so on. Let's keep that on for now. Pop-up holder. So holder is basically this wrapper around with this border and everything. We can adjust the maximum width. Now it does depend on what kind of image you have here, but you can increase that. It won't necessarily change because we do have this maximum height. We don't want it to get to the very edge of the browser, the top, but you can, if you want to make it smaller, you can do so just like that. Now, if you're viewing a landscape, then you could see a little bit of a difference. Let's go back to the landscape. Where is it? See, then it's much bigger. So it really does depend what image you have. Next, pop-up holder background. So that's this background right over here. So we can change that to, let's say, if we want it to be white. And then we have the border. We can also change that if we want. If that's not really visible, we can do that, for instance. And then we can adjust the width of it, make it thicker, or you could just put it at 0 for no border at all. And you could set the border radius, the corner radius more precisely. So you could see that we could set that up just like that. Next, we have pop-up text styling. So we can actually just hide this. If you're not interested in having any of that, you could just click just like that. But if you do want it, we have the option to set padding to give more space there, padding for mobile as well, alignment, so you can have it left aligned or right aligned or centered. Same thing with mobile in terms of alignment. And then we have the styling for the title. So we could choose an HTML element like I explained before. We can set up the colors, choose a custom font, font weight, top margin, font size, line height, letter spacing. Same thing for mobile. It's all the same, like we've been doing. And the same exact thing for the subtitle, just like that. And moving on, so all these, and that's it. Those are all the settings that we have for this, which are plenty, of course. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on the support page. We'll be glad to help you out if you have trouble or have any questions. And thank you again.